Hi there, it's Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com with this week's episode of the Market Monday. So this video is a little bit of a response video to Rudy's video that he put out today talking about the price of Dominaria. And I'm going to correct Rudy has it right a little bit on how it works with these sets and how the Dominaria, where we are starved and then overfed with Dominaria product. That is playing a factor into the role of Dominaria. But the real response to this video is also going to talk about another topic, another strategy that I use in investing in cards, especially right before rotation. Why I like the second and third sets of the past. I know we only have one block sets now, but you can still use that same sort of strategy that I used to use for second and third sets with the time of when sets come out. So in this, I guess going forward, since we're in one block sets, it's going to be more the summer sets or the dud sets, where are the more investable sets. And usually this rings true. Of course, there are some times where sets like Dragon's Maze are just such a dud that they are not worth investing in. But there are time periods when cards out of even sets like Dragon's Maze were definitely the right cards to invest in for, post-rotation cards like the Voice of Resurgence, because there was just nothing in the set that was worth investing into, and then it caused like a bit of a scarcity because no one was opening packs of Dragon's Maze, and therefore the card of Voice of Resurgence got to be more than it probably would have ever been if it would have been just a knockout of the park set. So that's kind of the topic for today. If you haven't watched Rudy's video, I highly suggest you go over to Rudy's channel, just give it a go, and you can know what I'm talking about. I'll give you the TLDR with what Rudy is saying. So Rudy says that Dominaria was kind of a bait and switch type product that was released upon us, that they arbitrarily kept the supply of Dominaria low, and there was a time period where no one could get it from distributors, and I still can't even get it directly from Wizards at the moment. I don't know if there will be a restock with Wizards with their announcement today saying that they are leaving the distribution side of things. You can no longer, after August, order products directly from Wizards as a local game store. You're going to have to go through a distributor. So I'm wondering if that has a lot to play into this. But anyway, Rudy is right. Dominaria was definitely handled differently. Dominaria had the buy a box promo, where the Firesong and Sunspeaker, where you could buy into, or you could pre-order as a player and get your boxes the day of the pre-release. So that you'd get it a week early if you pre-order from your local game store for a box. Usually how it's worked, you did your pre-release and then it was just fair game on release date for people to order as many boxes or order many boxes for that date. And there just was a mass box opening starting to occur the week after pre-release. This time around is a week earlier, and so a lot of that supply was injected early, but also was injected in a different sort of stream, where instead of going to the mass box openers, it was in the hands of the players the same time period as it was actually in the hands of people that were cracking boxes to sell the singles. So Rudy has it right there. But I would actually argue this whole starving scenario, Dominaria was a set that apparently, according to Wizards of the Coast, was the largest pre-release ever attended and the highest pre-orders for booster boxes ever. So it's not like we had a lack of supply. What we had was a Wizards just not being able to fulfill to demand based upon Amonkhet, Hour Devastation, Ixalan, and Rivals of Ixalans being in the scope of things quite dud compared to even sets in the past. And I don't think that Wizards was really prepared to handle the popularity of Dominaria. So there was a huge supply into the system at first, which was surprising to me that the cards of standard cards actually were able to hold the value for as long as they could, or they did in Dominaria. And we'll look at that in a second. I'll tell you exactly what went on there. And then there was, of course, that scarcity that kept prices arbitrarily inflated because no one knew when the restock was going to happen. So yes, that did end the doomsday scenario of Dominaria now being, according to Don Glare TCG Mid, which Mid is not the right one to go off. If you really want to make money off of booster boxes, you need to come over here and click low, and then you get to see a different picture. $35.73 is the really guaranteed money that you're going to get out of cracking a bunch of boxes of Dominaria. So if you're buying these for $70, $76 a booster box, you're definitely looking for massive loss. if you want to go that booster box strategy. If you go back over to TC Player Mid, it's actually the worst set at the moment in standard legal sets to invest in or to crack booster boxes to try to get your money back. It even, well, nope, looks like Omket's a little bit lower at this point, but these should be very low with them going out of rotation. All of these should be incredibly low due to the prices being at their all-time lows. So that gives you a little bit of scope of things of how bad the Dominaria scenario is. What Rudy gets wrong, though, is the exact causation of why this is occurring. And this is kind of a concept I like to call success breeds failure, failure breeds success. So there are a couple of sets that I like, and that will be the focal point of this video, is to look at failure being actually a good thing to invest in because it's going to lead an arbitrarily low supply, and the cards that are going to be C play, especially after rotation, are going to have a price tag that's higher than usual if it would have been included in a set like Dominaria. So I guess to jump ahead, we'll be talking about why I personally really like investing in particular singles out of Core Set 2019, because I think that this set is going to be dismally opened, and it's going to lead to having cards that are worth more than they would be if they would have been included in a set like Dominaria or even Ixalan. So we'll get to that, though. So anyway, going back to Dominaria, and we see this very, very high price tag of booster boxes being worth it to crack, has led to the downfall of the prices of Dominaria. So it's a clear-cut case of success leading to failure later on. So what I mean by that is Dominaria was such a hit out the park that we had, if we can click on any of these, the price history of these cards, we had a $68 Karn out the bin. We had a Teferi that was actually a sleeper that started pre-selling at 15. They went up to 35, $40, so $40 was the high. And then we also had Lyra, Historbenalia, Mox Amber. All of these had high price tags, 35 for Lyra. We had Historbenalia for 25 at its height. And the same thing with the Mox Amber, pre-selling all the way up to 40. So we had a lot of mythics. And mythics are misleading. Mythics do not hold a lot of the value of boxes, but they get people cracking packs. So it led to even a higher than usual rate of just your casual players going to the local game stores or entering events to have the chance of cracking one of these mythics that was worth a lot of money. And so that, of course, since like I said, mythics do not hold the value of the set, if a lot of these packs are being cracked and the mythics eventually go down, because a lot of these have ended up actually being duds. Now go back to my video that everyone hated me for with the top 10 booms of bust, and now I'm actually looking a little pretty good on some of these cards going down because they ended up not seeing play. Anyway, that's the real story of Dominaria in a nutshell. A highly successful set that had all of its value here in the mythics. The value was in the mythics. Whenever a set holds value in the mythics, it spells the doomsday scenario for that set holding price long term, because then people get to crack in the packs. So we can actually look at another set where the rares hold mythics, and no one is going out of their way to actually crack packs of Ixalan, which is probably where they should be, because you can get a $17 rare in Search for Azcanta, or you can get a Vraska's Contempt at $14. This has a lot more to do with the set value in the rare slot, with look at that Ixalan being at $81.49, meaning that even for a lot of people that can get booster boxes at 70, 75, $76, that becomes profitable at a mass scale of if you have a good way to get rid of the bulk, sell the singles at TCG mid price. Very, very profitable. A place like Card Kingdom or Star City Games, they could start cracking these and actually make a profit. If they ever get low in stock of any of these particular cards, it makes sense for them to start cracking these booster boxes and making their money back through that. However, it's not going to have the casual appeal, because if you go back over to the Ixalan, I don't want to crack an $18 card when I can open up Dominaria and crack a $40 card. So you see how the psychology of success leads to failure in an overall set, and that's exactly what's going on with Dominaria. So although Rudy has some points right on his video, I think he's missing the bigger picture with exactly how the secondary market works, how the psychology of the average casual player factors into what set they purchase, and to even top things off a little bit more, one of the big reasons why Dominaria is starting to have such a low value is that the sealed and the limited were massively popular. Whereas Ixalan, Rivals of Ixalan got old pretty quickly. People got bored of both the draft and the sealed environment. And now Core Set 2019 is probably one of the worst sealed, limited, across the board draft and sealed environments that I've ever had to play through. So the vast majority of times I've had some good experiences in Core 2019, but the common experience with me is lackluster. I've draft and sealed. I've had some decks that's like, oh, this is like playing intro decks against each other. Pretty terrible experience. Hard to find enough cards to really have a theme to a deck, and you're bashing in with the vanilla creatures, and it's usually cards that are hard to deal with end up winning the game. And in limited, that can be the thing in a lot of instances, but I thought Dominaria was very well built, that had so many answers. It was the set of answers that bombs ended up being not that bomby compared to other sets. So I think that also has a lot to do with the fall of Dominaria, is just how many times this set was cracked. It was also the focal point of GP Vegas, and just the amount of supply that was open right there at GP Vegas for the PTQ, for the limited GP, for all the side events, or all that must factor in a ton. People underestimate just how big GPs actually do influence the supply. At one point in time, like some of these modern, I believe it was Modern Masters 2, a lot of the allocation was for that particular GP, and we actually had a lower amount that actually got to stores because they set aside so much. It's one of the reasons why they didn't do Modern Masters 3 as the GP. They wanted the stores to have more of an allocation. So anyway, there are a lot more going on than just a set that you can't order for a couple weeks period, then leading to a set being refulfilled, and then people cracking it, and then like what Rudy's tried to say is that scarcity then led to people opening it like crazy, and then it flooded the market all at once, and it's just bad news. I think we would have got here anyway if there was a steady chain. And in fact, it would have been a lot worse if Wizards would have anticipated this and people could have ordered to their heart's content at the very first when we did have this high set value. So where does that lead us? I've always said since the beginning I didn't like Dominaria. I thought Dominaria was uninvestable because right here, when you have two mythics that crack the $40 mark and a couple others that crack the $20, $30 mark, that just leaves no value anywhere. And if these cards then go from seeing play, a lot of play, to not seeing play, cough cough Karn, then it really spells disaster for the set. So Karn is unfortunately really starting its downward trajectory. As you can see, it has fallen off of the standard meta. In fact, there's only one deck that even posts in a standard. This blue deck of the Psymaster Thopterus, and this one actually doesn't have Karn in it. So there goes that. There are a few decks that do run Karn here and there, but if you scour through a lot of these decks, they are not even running the Karn, as Karn just seems to be pretty meh in the meta at the moment when you're going against control decks and red decks, where it just doesn't really do anything putting out a token. It really has to have a dedicated deck like the blue-green Karn to make it worthwhile in standard at the moment. So Karn is at a free fall just because it doesn't see as much play as it once did. It was a two of them in almost every deck right out the gates, but that of course is very, very normal for a standard card. Once it sees play, as once it sees a printing, as everyone wants to try it out to see if it actually will work, and that is going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy. When everyone's running Karn, of course Karns are going to make top 8s and 5-0 finishes if everyone's running it. It's still, what Karn does have going for it is it still does see play in affinity decks in Modern. Few other decks will throw it in every now and again. It seems to be okay in Modern, especially when you can protect it a lot easier with one size fits all cards in Modern. They can wipe the board or rip out cards out of your opponent's hand a lot easier than Standard. But you can see right here, according to Goldfish, it's pretty much gone from the standard meta. So Karn is going to have a free fall when it was a card that was in every deck. So again, that spells disaster for Dominaria because people were cracking it back for that. You look at Mox Amber, isn't even seeing any modern play, very, very few modern play at the moment. And again, it's just in this one standard deck as a 3 of in this Master Thopterus deck. So Dominaria, unfortunately, had the downfall of being insanely popular right out the gates, being cracked like crazy, and now it's just not only is the secondary market catching up, but the meta's catching up, and then being like, well, these cards just aren't that great. Besides Teferi, and well, of course, Goblin Chain Whirler that no one wants to invest in at the moment because everyone thinks it's going to be banned. There's just really not a lot out of this set that's doing a bunch in standard. Kaladesh and Amonkhet blocks are still dominating it, and post rotation there could be a opportunity for a lot of these cards to see play, but the supply is already out there like crazy, and I still think that this set is going to get a lot of people opening it for the Teferis, because I do expect that Teferi is going to maintain the price tag, as it is such a powerhouse in Modern and such a powerhouse in Standard, and it probably gets a lot better even after Standard rotation, when a lot of the Boogeyman cards from Kaladesh rotate out, and Teferi becomes probably the most powerful card that remains for Standard. So I'm expecting a lot of blue-white control decks, even though they are getting a lot of cards rotated. However, Teferi in itself can be the finisher and the draw engine for those decks, so as long as there's Essence Scatters and Syncopates, you're going to see some Teferi decks in the meta. So anyway, there's my little gist. There's my little knock at Rudy. On the right line of thinking, but missing some huge holes in the story of why Dominaria is the way it's at. Has a lot more to do with the meta, has a lot more to do with how successful it was, with so many cards, seeing so many 5-0 finishes, from History Banales to Steel Leaf Champions to just so many of them, and then waited a couple weeks and we're back to green-black energy, or green-black +1/+1 counters. We're even full circle back to Scarab God decks that Scarab God kind of took a break from Standard for a little bit, and now is back in full force. And then, of course, back to vehicles and red-based decks. So there's that. All right, so on to the main topic now. Now that I've rambled forever about how Rudy's wrong. Core Set 2019 is actually where I want to be. Rivals of Ixalan and Ixalan, I wish I would have been there. I think these are going to be great sets post-rotation, especially these cards like the Rekindling Phoenix that don't seem to be going anywhere. The Galtas, I think that any green Stompy deck, especially a lot of the cards out of Core 2019, we're going into Gruul territory in Ravnica that usually has some sort of big Stompy theme to it. These type of cards are starting to be very lucrative, because Ixalan is the exact opposite of Dominaria. These sets were duds out the gates. They crashed quick, where opening these boxes was not lucrative, and everyone stayed away from it. There wasn't a lot of mass crack boxes. The Rivals of Ixalan just wasn't a very good draft environment. A lot of times you got stuck in these halfsies decks, and people just weren't enthusiastic about drafting the set over and over. There wasn't a lot of chase cards to open. The Rekindling Phoenix was kind of a sleeper that slowly climbed up, to the point where, look right here, Masters 25 already came out. So people are like, yeah, there's a mythic out of Rivals of Ixalan that looks good to crack, but let's get some ensnaring bridges out of this. Rather crack these packs than this pack. And so it's just slowly crept up and stayed there, just because of the lack of Rekindling Phoenix that actually exist out there in comparison to Dominaria or Kaladesh. We go over to other cards, even like Jadelight Ranger, sitting at $9. There are a lot of cards that see as much play as Jadelight Ranger. If we go over here to the format staples, I'm sure that Jadelight Ranger does. Yeah, but you can look, Goblin Chain Whirler, she's a lot more play than Chain Whirler, but Chain Whirler's over twice the price of Goblin Chain Whirler. You even come down, wow, Chain Whirler's less than Thrashing Bronzodon. It's less than Steel Leaf Champion, less than Verdur's Gearhulk. It's less than a lot of these other cards, yet holds that really high price tag of the $9. So that has more to do with, of course, it is a very powerful card and popular card, but it has more to do with Rivals of Ixalan not being opened nearly as much as it should have been. Look at like Twilight Prophet, a $7 mythic that sees very little play, if any at all. Yeah, White Black Vampires is kind of a popular card every now and again, and it's not really. I don't think it's even a very, very popular commander card. So $7, of course, isn't that steep for a mythic, but still a card that sees very little play, still being able to hold a $7 is very impressive. Tender Shoot Dryad, this shot up when Saplings were in Dominaria, and of course hasn't been able to live up to its potential, but still, that's a rare. That's a rare that sees very little play, if any. There's a Sultai midrange deck that doesn't even see play in it. It has seen play in a Sultai midrange deck at one point in time. Yep, isn't even in these lists that I pick it up. So that is a huge sign with a set that is under open. So where does that leave us? Rotation, all of a sudden Tender Shoot Dryad sees a tier 1 deck. This card could easily go up to 12, 15 bucks. A card like Huatli or other mythics like a Twilight Prophet, all of a sudden a deck that can utilize Twilight Prophet, it goes up to even more. It goes up to 14. It's easy double ups. These are the type of sets that I like to focus on. I don't like to focus on Dominaria. I don't think that it's going to have the effect that Rudy says, oh, no one's going to crack it now because it's 65 bucks a box. So therefore, after rotation, one of these cards like History Finale could be the new Boogeyman card, and then boom, everyone needs it, so they have to start cracking packs again. And so if you invest in Dominaria booster boxes, and they'll go shoot up in value because no one, no, that is not where I want to be. I want to be looking at these sets that were duds all the time. They have a lot bigger potential to have these little sleeper cards. And of course, I am still under the mindset where I invest in singles, not sealed product. I think that sealed product hasn't been investable for quite some time. Yeah, there have been some box sets like Eternal Masters and Modern Masters sets that just because they have been even lower scarcity, and we didn't know, it was a really weird time with Wizards. We didn't know if they're going to get another print wave of all of these sets, and so lo and behold, they did turn that off, and these boxes have been profitable, but that was a lot more risky than I would say investing in particular singles that have very, very cyclical patterns, very predictable patterns. So I like Rivals of Ixalan a lot. I've actually spent a lot of money in some of these uncommons. There was a few uncommons that I was getting at a penny a piece that I believe are going to be Skymeter Aspirant's one of them that I was buying from a very, very low price from a bunch of different vendors on TCG Player. A lot of these tribal-based cards. Golden Demise was another one that I picked up quite a bit of. 400 Vampires, another I picked quite a bit up of. Just because I think that this set just wasn't opened a lot, and if they do see the risk is the potential, even if these are duds, a lot of casual players will still eat these up out of their supply. If they do see a tier 1 deck after rotation, these uncommon cards can be $1. A lot of these other rares, these lower rares, I sunk a little bit of money in just because after Admiral's Orders was one I was buying for 10 cents a piece like crazy, because I think it's just going to be the natural, it's just strictly better than Cancel, and if they don't print a counterspell that's better than Cancel, then Admiral's Order is just going to be the de facto counterspell in that slot. So anyway, that's where we want to be. I'm not going to talk about Ixalan and Rivals of Ixalan because I think we've already missed a lot of the ability to see good returns on these. Look at all these cards that have already gone up. They're already in the green. A lot of these that are going crazy. Vraska is still another good card. You don't know how good this card is going to be post-rotation. What I do want to focus on, though, because this is when I do like to invest in cards, is Core Set 2019. I think that this is this is not a good set. I'm done. I was not impressed with this set. The fact that Nicol Bolas is still able to hit $35 price tag at this point is just, crazy talk at this point. I think if any card would be the chase card out of this, it'd be Crucible of Worlds, because it's proven itself. But even you see cards like Resplendent Angel that are still holding value. I don't know. Even though there's more value in the set and we still have the $35 Chase Mythic, I don't see people buying this set like crazy. I think this is going to be the set that everyone just forgets about in a few months, especially when the Commander set comes out. People are going to start buying into the Commander, and then we have Ravnica come out, and people are going to be completely focused on Ravnica. The shelf life of Core Set 2019 and rotation. No one wants to even be buying standard cards right now because we don't know if they're going to be good after rotation. I think that this is the set where you can pick up some of these rare cards that have already gone way down in value that you can definitely, and we might be a little bit early for this. We can still wait a month and wait for until this set is done selling, and that's the time to buy into these cards. Now, there are some good cards in this particular set, like the Leonin War Leader, for example. This is a very, very powerful ability, and in like a slower, clunkier, if the removal package isn't that great in Standard, this is the type of card that can definitely take over those Standard environments. If we get Tribals again through any one of these Tribal cards, it could be huge breakouts. Some of these mythics, like Vivictus or Platimorphs, we go to like more of the mid-range that existed during the Innistrad and Return to Ravnica days. Some of these cards could definitely be the go-to de facto finishers for those color pairings. If we get Shocklands back, these type of cards definitely could fit that bill. So I definitely keep my eye on Core Set 2019, Rivals of Ixalan, those rotation, and forget about Dominaria. The ship has sailed for that set. The success of Dominaria is going to be its downfall with the ability for those cards to go up in value. We saw the same with Kaladesh. Kaladesh was a set where, if we go over here to Format Staples, let's see if it still is true. For Scrap Heap Scrounger, #1 card. This isn't the first time Scrap Heap Scrounger was the #1 card. Yes, this was printed in a Challenger deck, and therefore Challenger decks, of course, can't hold a value. There's another good something to point out there with Challenger decks is the success of Challenger decks also led to the downfall of Challenger decks because they were so popular that Wizards reprinted them, and now they're not even worth buying because not one of them holds value with the cards, the contents they contain. So Scrap Heap Scrounger, though, you can kind of see how Kaladesh had this exact same issue. This was the #1 card even here. It was the #1 card, I believe, in a lot of these spikes of being played, and it continued to go down since its initial release. It never really, the highest price that Scrap Heap Scrounger ever had was $4.50. It has been much more dominant than Jade Light Ranger has ever been in Standard. It could never crack a $4.50 price tag, and mainly it's because Kaladesh was very similar to Dominaria. It came out the gates as a very powerful set. You can see that it spiked up right here, so that means it actually hit the meta very, very quick, and it was cards like the Torrential Gearhulk, it was cards like Chandra that held a ton of value, that had these spikes after the release. Like we had, $30, multiple times $30 Torrential Gearhulks that people were chasing, or Chandra got up to like what? Almost, Chandra was at like 60 at one point. Maybe I'm off on that. It's high up, $60, its highest price. More realistically, it held 40 at multiple time periods. So this is the card that everyone was buying. This is also a card that hit Modern. There was a lot of cards that are, when this was spoiled, people playing around it with in Modern, and it actually started seeing some top finishes. So this was the downfall of a lot of Kaladesh rares. I don't know if there ever was a lot of cards you could ever make return off of their pre-sale price from Kaladesh, just because they had such a good box opening, and then with the inventions on top of that. Yeah, very, very, these are the sets I like to avoid. The first sets, the ones that get drafted a lot, the ones that stick around forever. And Dominaria is no different in that aspect. And usually I would say the Ixalan is the set that you don't want to touch, but because it's the first set of it's going to last a long time in the scope of rotation. It lasts longer than Rivals and Dominaria and Core 2019, and that means that it's going to be opened throughout the whole 2 years before rotation, and there's going to be a lot more supply in it because of it. But Ixalan was just in a time period of a downturn in Magic, which is actually good. So I think that shifts over to Dominaria, being the Kaladesh of this block coming up that you don't want to touch for even singles, no matter how well they do in the post-rotation. Anyway, I'm not going to do any sort of picks for Core 2019. I think that'll be a topic for a later date when we can start to look at a spoiler season, especially if we see any tribal cards that work perfectly with all the tribe cards out of 2019, or if there's any glaring holes that Standard is going to leave that Core 2019 actually fulfills. That's where you want to be looking at, is those type of cards to invest in. And we're too early for that. We need some time for drafting to happen. Speaking of picks, though, I still do like Sorcerer's Spyglass. I think that, let's see the Spyglass here. This card is, it did spike up higher than I thought it did. When did I miss this? But I think this is a good, if Planeswalkers still are the boogeyman, this is a good card to shut down the Planeswalkers. There are some nice cards out of both Ixalan and Rivals of Ixalan. Vraska's Contempt and those type of cards could even go up further, which is crazy for a rare in this day and age. So keep your eye on that. Keep your eye post-rotation. Dominaria, there's more going on than just like lack of supply or oversupply and things like that. The metagame is very important. Just the outlook of the psychology of the casual player wanting to buy into sets, how fun a draft set is, how fun a limited environment is going to lead to a lot more supply injected in the system. How long a set actually lasts in like PTQ seasons and GP seasons, where there's a lot of limited tournaments that are running Dominaria, for example, versus how many ran Rivals of Ixalan or Core Set 2019, all of those factor in to the overall supply, and it has a lot more to do than you would think. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this video, and again, try to look for multiple sources when trying to figure out a particular phenomenon, and especially in markets, because other people have different perspectives. That's one of my Achilles heels too, is I start to think of Magic in my perspective, my tunnel vision perspective of how I see things. And it makes you miss out on a lot of opportunities. Like, just because I wasn't a Commander player or a casual player for the longest time, I missed out on those Commander specs. And I wish that I would have gone all in on Commander clear back in the day. And now that I've changed my tone, I was able to see cards like Sidisi and Cyclonic Rift and many of those Grave Packs, those type of cards that never really saw any constructed play, and just able to make a killing investing in those type of cards. Hope you enjoyed this video. This has been Kevin with Rogue Deck Builder. Thanks for watching.